So in the video just prior to this, when I explained that when I'm President of the United States, I'm going to do away with taxes and implement a better way of funding government programs. That better way is, of course, the bottomless budget, a government account that's on constant refresh so that whenever it transfers digital funds into another account, it automatically creates new digital funds to make up for what just left. And at the end of that video, I briefly started to address the inflation argument, probably the most common argument that comes up against a bottomless budget, right? You can't do a bottomless budget because inflation, right? So I just pointed out that it's possible to have policies that control inflation. This goes to show that inflation doesn't really work as an argument against a bottomless budget. So in today's video, I'm just going to talk about what I would do as president to control inflation. And I guess I should start by clarifying that when we talk about inflation in an economic context, we're talking about when businesses raise prices, which of course devalues the currency. It makes it so that we don't get as much bang for our buck. That said, businesses raise prices for different reasons in different contexts, like if the minimum wage goes up or there's some scarcity of a resource and they want to maximize their profits on it while it lasts. But today's video is not intended to address those particular situations. I can address them in future videos. Today's video is just addressing the situation where a business might decide to raise prices just because the government has implemented a bottomless budget. So what I would do in that particular situation to incentivize those businesses to not raise prices is I would pay them to not raise prices. And I'm not just talking a one-time or annual payment. I'm talking about paying these businesses for every good or service sold. So whenever a customer buys something from a business, the government will also give that business some money. It'll come out of the bottomless budget. And the amount that the government gives will gradually go up more and more over time so that as far as the business is concerned, it's kind of as if they are raising prices, even though the customer never actually has to pay more. And this is intended to be an opt-in contractual agreement where the participating businesses are equipped with technologies that actually physically prevent them from raising prices. And the technologies might be a little bit different depending on like the business model. Like some places, they might be able to just like download a program, whereas other places might need to actually have like engineers come in and, hook them up with the proper equipment. Now to clarify, I'm not paying these businesses to slash prices, nor am I paying them to let me go through all the goods and services that they're selling, painstakingly trying to figure out what to set prices at. I'm not going to go to all that trouble. Right? No, the businesses have already set their own prices. All they have to do is just not raise those prices. Don't get me wrong, they'll be able to do like a discount sale price and then later on go back up to the standard price, but once the standard price is set, they can't set it any higher. Or in other words, we'll basically have contractual price ceilings that are essentially voluntary. Although I do reserve the right to make the program mandatory should it turn out that there's not enough voluntary participants. I don't expect that to be a problem. I think that businesses will like the idea of getting paid to not raise prices, right? I think they'll prefer that over raising prices, losing customers, and devaluing the currency, which will hurt them as well. But of course, the controversy surrounding price ceilings goes beyond whether they should be voluntary or mandatory. How interested will businesses be in being paid to not raise prices? All you got to do is Google why price ceilings are bad, why price ceilings never work, stuff like that. You'll find plenty of people trying to make a case against price ceilings. I, of course, tend to find these arguments not at all convincing. I spot like logical fallacies, inconsistencies. Sometimes they're just misdiagnosing a problem, being short-sighted, stuff like that. Yeah, these are just not convincing arguments. So to go ahead and address these arguments, these are just the top 3 that I can recall just off the top of my head. I know that the very first argument I ever came across against price ceilings is that when they tried it in Zimbabwe, all sorts of business folk wound up, being arrested for raising prices despite the fact that it was illegal to raise prices. Okay, so that kind of demonstrates a lack of effectiveness for these price ceilings. Okay, now I agree that how they went about doing it in Zimbabwe was ineffective, but I'm not promoting we do it the way Zimbabwe did it. I'm promoting that we pay businesses to not raise prices and equip them with technologies that physically prevent them from raising prices. Also, let's keep in mind that murder is illegal, as is rape and theft. Yet every now and then someone still commits a murder or a rape or a theft. Does that mean that we should just get rid of the law? Say, oh, it's ineffective. It doesn't work. Go ahead, guys. Go murder people. Go rape whoever you want. Go steal whatever the hell you want. Go ahead. Law doesn't work. Now, for me, what this goes to show is the law doesn't go far enough, right? It doesn't do enough to completely stop the problem. There's more that we can do, but it doesn't mean we should get rid of the law. Now, another argument that I've seen come up against price ceilings is that it makes the demand for various goods and services outpace the supply. But of course, when we talk about demand in an economic context, we're using the word a little bit differently than how we'd ordinarily use it. Because I can put my foot down and demand a house, right? I demand a house. I can demand a house, but if I don't have enough money to afford a house, then by customary economic teachings, I don't actually qualify as part of the demand for a house. So in modern economics, when we talk about the demand for a particular good, we're not just talking about the desire for that good, but also the ability to actually purchase that good. So one of the potential contributing factors to demand outpacing supply would be if there's suddenly more people than usual who can afford to buy some of that supply. This is like what we'd see if we were to implement a price ceiling that actually slashed prices, which is of course not what I'm proposing. It's not my plan to slash prices. I'm just simply going to pay businesses to not raise prices. There's a difference. There's going to be different effects. Suffice it to say, it's easier for supply to keep up with demand if we go with my strategy as opposed to the strategy they used in Zimbabwe where they actually slashed prices. That being said, even if it was true that my price ceilings would lead to demand temporarily outpacing some of the supplies, that's not really an adequate reason to not do them. Here, I'm going to put it this way. I would love to someday be able to comfortably afford to move out of my mom's house and get my own place. And I prefer it if that happens sooner rather than later. But of course, as long as we perpetuate the current economic model, that's not going to happen. So while I prefer it happen sooner rather than later, I'd also prefer that it happen later rather than never. And as it turns out, if we were to implement price ceilings, even if I'm put on some waiting list, at least I can eventually get what I want. Whereas if we don't do price ceilings, or more specifically, if they continue to raise prices, then I'm probably never going to get what I want. Here's an idea. Why don't we switch to an economic model where the demand actually incorporates everyone instead of just those who have enough money to afford stuff? So if we do that, what you'll find is that in at least certain circumstances, demand actually outpaced supply a long time ago. So we need to be working on methodologies for making these supplies more abundantly and ubiquitously available for more people, not just those who have a certain amount of money. These methodologies can include, but are not necessarily limited to, using this kind of resource instead of that one, right? Maybe relying more on automation and not so much on slow-ass human labor, right? You automate, you can get a lot more done a lot faster. Any businesses that wanted to automate, I could fund it out of my bottomless budget. If this lays off a bunch of workers, I could fund their severance pay. I could fund a basic income for them. Now, another argument that I've seen come up against price ceilings is that they kill competition. And I can see how certain types of price ceilings could potentially kill certain types of competition. Take, for example, if your price ceilings are simultaneously price floors. This is something I would not do. I wouldn't even do price floors at all. If businesses want to lower prices, they can lower them as much as they want. Remember, I'd be paying businesses to not raise prices past the standard price that they have already set. Okay, they can go back and forth between their standard price and their discount price all they want. This methodology actually encourages competition. In conclusion, while at least some of these arguments might work against at least certain types of price ceilings, there are other conceivable price ceilings that they just simply are not going to work against. And you got to keep in mind that there's other things we can do outside of price ceilings that can either hinder their ability to work properly or ensure that they work properly. But if I were to stop the video right here, an accurate critique that a person could make of this video would be that I have yet to address all the possible incentives that a business might have for raising prices, right? I mostly was just trying to address, what to do about, businesses that want to raise prices just because the government now has a bottomless budget. Well, the government has a bottomless budget, we're going to raise prices, right? I was mainly trying to address that in particular, but what about if the minimum wage goes up? Right? If the minimum wage goes up, some businesses might want to raise prices for that reason, and it's possible that paying them to not raise prices will be sufficient, but what if it's not? Right? And so I'll talk about that in the next installment of this series, which may or may not be the very next video that I make. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. We'll see what happens, right? But that's it for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with other people. If you're interested in watching my future videos, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one. So have a good one, guys, and peace.